Hello and welcome guys to another video, and today we have week 7 of the iRacing GT3 Sprint Series. So let's have a look at the Hotlap and then we'll have a look at the guide. So now that we've had a look at the Hotlap, let's have a look at the guide. You'll notice from the Hotlap that we have to keep up the momentum quite a lot for some of the corners where we only need to lift or just a tiny bit of braking. So let's have a look at the first corner. So for the approach to turn 1, you'll notice the pit exit there. We want to get nice and close to that on the left hand side, and then we're looking for this blue cone here on the left. Now as we go past this blue cone, we want to get on the brakes and brake down to second gear, and we want to be all the way onto this red and white curbing on the left here to open up the corner as much as possible. And before this advertising boards end on the barrier on the left here, we want to begin turning in. Now there's two curbs on the inside. There's a flat one and a sausage one, so you want to aim for this flat curb, trailing the brakes all the way to the apex and then getting on the power just as we touch that curb there. Now accelerate up into third gear, and then we want to just lift off as we turn in here. So we're turning in, lift off the power, up into third gear, use a little bit more curb than we did in turn 1, then back onto the power, immediately aiming over to the right. We don't need to bring it all the way over to the left, just keep it in the middle of the track. Just a little touch of the brakes, there isn't really a marker for it. Basically as you come off this left-hander, as soon as we straighten the wheel, then we want to apply a little bit of braking, only about 50% just to lose a bit of speed, down into second gear, holding the inside really nice and tight, again using that flatter curb instead of the sausage curb, and then get on the power just before this sausage curb disappears on our inside. Just before that, we want to get on the power, progressively get on the power because there's a little bit of banking here, unwind the steering wheel, once the rears are gripped up then get fully on the power. Make sure we're taking advantage of this exit curbing as well. For this right-hander there, just a little kink, keep it over to the right. And then for this left-hander, it's full throttle. We're turning in just before this first white line for this alternate course. So just before that, we're turning in for this left-hander, full throttle corner. Just try and keep your momentum up. Now going into this hairpin, we want to keep it over to the right-hand side, and we're braking about halfway between the 100 and the 50 meter board. I don't know why the markers are only on the left and not on the right, but it's about halfway between those two reference points that we want to get on the brakes. Down into second gear, and we are trying to get as late an apex as possible. As we see here, the curb is starting there and we're nowhere near it yet, but as it begins to end here, that is where we're going to apex the corner. It ends here, and this is kind of our apex reference. We want to get on the power about a car length before that curb ends. So just as that curb's ending, we are getting onto the power, unwinding the steering wheel. Be careful not to exit this corner too early. We want to be exiting over here just after the curb. We'll see here. So as you see, we're actually getting to the edge of the track over here, a bit further up than where that curb is. Now for this long sweeping right-hander, we basically just want to carry as much momentum as possible. So for this right kink, we want to try and put as little steering input as possible so that the car naturally goes over to the left here. And then for this right-hander, this is the turning point. Now there isn't really a reference on the track. What you could use is when this electric pole, I don't know what you would call these ones, pylons maybe, when that is basically in the center of the dashboard, around about that point is the turning point for the right-hander. You could use that as a reference, just see, or you might be able to just do it based off of feel. There is also a little mark here on the tarmac, and we want to be turning in before that marker, but some track conditions you're not going to see that marker, so it's a bit frustrating not having any reference points there. But for the first right-hander, it's full throttle, and we're trying to get nice and close to this curb but not actually using it so we don't unsettle it. And then again, we're trying to put as a little steering input as possible so we drift out over to the left hand side of the track. Now still full throttle, and then we're braking just as this curb starts on the left. It starts here, we're just braking just before that. Braking still in fourth gear, and it's only about 5%. And we want to turn in before this curb ends on the left hand side. So before that ends on the left hand side, we're turning in, and just as this white triangle starts for this curb, you see we've got this white triangle on the inside. We want to get on the power just as that begins on the right hand side. Get onto the power again, and then just after the curb disappears off our view, just after that curb disappears, we want to lift off the power, get on the brakes, and aim for this curb over on the left. So we want to bring it over to the left, a little bit of braking, get the car straight, and then we want to turn in about 2 car lengths before this point here. So before that curb ends, we want to turn in just a tiny little bit of braking, and then we're getting on the power just after this white triangle starts for this curb. Most of these red and white curbings, they have this white triangle here on the inside. So we want to get on the power just as that begins on our inside. Again, we're using this flat curb, avoid the sausage curb, get onto the power third gear here, then let it drift out over to the left, and then bring it back over to about the middle of the track here. We don't need to go all the way over to the right. So just after this curb ends on the right hand side, we want to touch the brakes here. So just after that ends, we want to get about 10% braking, turn it in nice and early, and follow this curb on the left hand side. Still off the throttle here, and then just after this sausage curb ends on the left hand side, we want to increase our braking pressure to about 20 to 40%, and then we want to follow this curb on the right hand side, trailing the brakes, and we see there's this little line here where the light gravel starts, the lighter color of gravel. At that changeover point between the two different colors of gravel, that's where we want to get back onto the power second gear, progressively get onto the power because there's a little bit of banking, bring it out over to the left, then get fully on the power, up into third gear using all this exit available to you. Just be careful not to invalidate the lap. And then we've got this square right-hander coming up here. So on the left-hand side, we're looking at our marker boards, and about halfway between the 100-meter board and the 50-meter board, we're braking, and we're turning in about a car length before the final red strip on the curb here, about a car length before that, and we're aiming for the flat part of the curb next to the sausage curb as our apex, trailing the brakes, and we get on the power before we even reach the start of that sausage curb. Touch the flat curbing there. Don't unsettle the car too much by taking too much curb on the inside there. Make sure you're using all of this exit curb because that will allow you to get on the power earlier. And then for this final basically square hairpin, we're braking just before this curb starts on the right hand side. There isn't really a marker for it, so I'd say about a car length or two before that curb starts on the right hand side. We want to brake down into second gear, and again aiming for the sausage curb as our apex, but only using the flat curb. Get onto the power just as we reach that sausage curb, and then unwind the steering wheel to the outside of the corner. Make sure that we use all the track available to us, and then as this curb ends on the right hand side, we want to just lift off the power slightly, tiny touch of the brakes just to get the nose turned in, and again where that sausage curb is, we're aiming for that point, but we're getting on the power way before we reach it. But this is our apex reference. Using that flat curb, unwind the steering wheel, progressively get on the power, don't want to unsettle the rears too much, bring it over to the right again, and we're going to be able to hook basically the right wheel on this curb. That's going to help us to pull us around this right hander. Try not to scrub off any speed unnecessarily, let it drift out over to the left. And then for this corner here, we're looking at the 100-meter board, and we're braking as we reach that 100-meter board, down through the gears, down into second gear, and we turn in at this point, which it's about halfway down this curb. It's about halfway down that curb. We want to turn in. We're still on the brakes, and then we want to get on the power just after that sausage curb on the right hand side starts. So just after that starts, get back on the power, unwind the steering wheel. We can use this little green tarmac concrete stuff on the exit of the curb. Just be careful not to invalidate on the exit there. And now going up into the final corner, we're again looking at the left hand side for the boards, and we're braking just after that 50-meter board disappears, and we're turning in as this curb starts. So as this curb starts on the left hand side, we're turning in, and again we're aiming for that sausage curb, but only using the flat part of the curbing. Just try and carry as much momentum out of that final corner as possible, because we've got a really wide exit curbing, so we want to take advantage of that. But that is it for the track guide, guys. As always, thank you very much for watching, hope you enjoyed, and see you again next time.